it's Catching Tease here. Welcome to my channel where today I am tackling a rather large policy within the industry, the dating ban. It's something that affects almost every idol, and I haven't seen many people take an in-depth critical lens to it. Most people just complain about it, so I figured I'd try to expand on the issue a little bit more and add some nuance to it. The way I'm going to do this is by structuring this video kind of like an argument where I present some reasons for both sides. I know most K-pop stans say that they don't like the dating ban, so that's why I'll be starting with some reasons why it does make sense, and then dive into the other end of things. So let's get into it. It's no secret that idol life is very demanding. Between training, practice, performances, variety shows, interviews, tours, and much more, there's a lot for idols to keep up with. And that's without including school if the idol is still young enough to be attending, which many of the debuting idols these days are. If you're going to be an idol, you have to dedicate everything that you are to it. That's just how the profession is. It's competitive enough that if you aren't willing to make those sacrifices to debut, they'll find someone else who is. That's the harsh reality of really any entertainment position. It's just that the stakes are monumentally higher in K-pop. Even after debut, things don't slow down. The first couple years after debut are all hustle, trying to get your name out in any way and find enough success to prove yourself to your company. Especially if you're from a small company and are trying to evade disbandment. Groups are doing everything in their power just to be sustainable because of how absolutely cutthroat the industry is. Idols often don't even get to see their families because of how busy they are. They're encouraged to rely on their fellow members and their fellow members only because those are the only people that they can consistently expect to be surrounded by and get support from. So how can they realistically start and sustain a healthy relationship with another person under these circumstances? And sure, after they've established themselves in the industry, they might be able to take their foot off the gas and find some time for dating, but even that isn't a given. I mean, look at Twice, especially in 2018. Those girls were sitting pretty in the industry, but JYP decided that was all the more reason to ramp up their workload and capitalize on their success. And they are far from the only ones in that boat. But say this doesn't happen. Say an idol gets a more relaxed schedule with some time to themselves. It still takes a very particular person to date someone who currently is in the public eye. Finding someone like that could be a real challenge. At that point, it's probably easier to find someone who is also in the industry, possibly even in the same company, because they'll be a little bit more understanding of your situation. But then you run an even higher risk of being caught, and what if your schedules clash? Having one insanely busy person in a relationship is tough enough, but two? Finding time to truly build a relationship without neglecting your personal health or your responsibilities as an idol could get very difficult. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna start this section by stating my stance that being in a relationship shouldn't be considered a scandal, but alas, where celebrities are involved, there will always be drama. That's just the honest and unfortunate truth. And that drama is exponential in an industry that thrives on parasocial relationships with delusional fans. Idols are specifically trained to appear available and oh so perfect, so undermining those efforts puts one of the foundational pillars of the entire industry at risk. From a purely cold-hearted business standpoint, it's understandable why there is a stigma against dating in the industry. And while companies definitely encourage this stigma, we can't downplay the role that the fans and the media have in perpetuating it. Historically, fans have always had this sense of entitlement towards the idols that they support, and this issue has only been exacerbated by the internet and the increasing globalization of K-pop. While I believe most fans are rational about allowing idols their privacy and their autonomy, there is an incredibly vocal minority on the opposite end of the spectrum that now has a megaphone in social media. Companies see this and apply this small sample size of opinion to an entire population, causing this issue to blow up way bigger than it actually is in the minds of companies and the media. And oh boy, does the media run with it. Article after article will be written and posted about the situation, dragging an idol's name through the mud in the process to gain more clicks. It doesn't matter if people agree or disagree with it. A strong stance generates outrage, which generates clicks, and clicks give them more money. Fans see these articles, comment on them, more articles are written on fan responses, and this cycle continues as everyone dances around the wider issue at work without actively addressing it. Since this stigma exists, spirals so quickly, and almost inevitably leads to backlash for the idol, it almost seems like the responsible thing for a company to tell their idols to take a step back from dating. Put yourself in the shoes of a company. Is allowing an idol the freedom to date really worth risking the hit that their image and mental health could take after the almost inevitable backlash? Can you in good conscience allow that, especially when you're well aware that this reaction is almost guaranteed? Not to mention how it could hurt the company. Pulling away from the emotional side of things, how would this affect the pocketbook for the company? Now, I haven't tracked stock prices and how they correlate with scandals or anything, but I would be willing to bet that companies lose some money each time a scandal like this happens. And money is what runs the industry. If a dating scandal runs the risk of affecting the bottom line, companies aren't going to risk that. Not saying that it's morally correct necessarily, just saying that it does make logical sense. Just seeing all of these risks that stem from a single scandal, I don't see why companies wouldn't ban dating. I mean, we're talking about an industry that regularly violates basic human rights. Why would they draw the line at dating of all things? Okay, now getting into the other side of things. This first reason isn't like a concrete thing, but more of just a value that I think most of us can agree with. And if you can't agree with the general statement that people deserve to have authority over their own lives, then get off my channel? Because you see, I am an American, and that inherently means that I value freedom to the point where it's obnoxious, okay? I'm not cool with people restricting other people from what they want to do if what they want to do isn't even hurting anyone. If idols want to date, they should be able to. Yes, it might be rough, and it might turn out horribly for them, but they're adults. Well, actually, most of them aren't adults anymore, but they are humans, and they should be able to make their own decisions and deal with any potential consequences, such as life. Companies might need to put in a little more legwork to defend their idols, but that's kind of just the morally correct thing to do, and there actually could be some other advantages for them, but that will have to wait until my last point. Most of us agree that the stigma around idols of the opposite sex interacting is stupid, right? People have been complaining for the last couple years about award shows being boring because everyone just sits there like a statue, too scared to start a rumor. If idols can't even look at each other in the eyes without sparking a controversy, we have a problem. So how did it get this far? Well, I think it started all the way back with the dating ban. The entire concept of the dating ban was built on the idea of objectification and ownership. At its inception, it was intentionally dehumanizing so that companies could exercise and emphasize their control over their idols while providing fans the illusion that they also had that control and that idols were just products for them to consume. However, over time, the control that fans have over idols has become less and less illusory and much more tangible. As companies kept acquiescing to the demands of fans in an effort to make their idols the most appealing, they gradually handed all of that very real control over. Now fans are fully comfortable making demands for very real people because, well, it's worked in the past. It's like bad parenting. The fans are the kids that scream until they get what they want, and companies are the uncaring parents that will do whatever just to get them to shut up and hand their money over. The real issue is now that fan bases have perpetuated that mentality and it is so cemented in K-pop stan culture, companies have no idea how to take their power back. At least, not without stomping on a lot of toes. We've seen some pushback in the last year or so, but not anything substantial. Sure, it's rumored that some companies don't have a dating clause in their contracts, but we don't know that for sure, and even if that is the case, it just means that it's more of an unspoken rule rather than a written and signed one. And companies won't ever draw attention to it out of fear of losing their delusional fans. I think what needs to happen to create healthier and more realistic standards and expectations in the industry and inside of fan bases is that companies need to be willing to offend those delusional and overbearing fans. They need to put a line in the sand and not just say, but announce our artists are people and they should be able to live their own lives, because I actually think that would benefit them in the long term. Do you know how many rational fans out there would clamor over each other for a company like that? How much positive publicity it would get, not to mention longevity. When you build a fan base that purposely exiles people who tear their idols to shreds for the most innocuous things, they'll be much more likely to stand the test of time. That's much more impactful and profitable to have a long-term group or artist rather than one that burns bright but fast. And speaking of profitable, I've mentioned how this industry runs on money, right? Well, here's their motivation. While a lot of fans are overprotective of their idols, there are more that would be supportive of relationships, some overwhelmingly so. We can debate the ethics of cashing in on a relationship, but the fact still stands that there is a lot of attention and a lot of money to be found in it. We've seen it work with celebrities in the West, and while I recognize that Korea is not the same as the West, I think it could work, and we already have seen it work. I mean, look at Hyuna and Dawn's go at it. After Cube let them go, they released an EP together, and I wasn't keeping track of how well it was received in Korea. My guess would be probably not very well, but international stans ate it up. Ping Pong has over 76 million streams on Spotify, which is way more than Dawn's releases have ever gotten, and more than all but one of Hyuna's releases. It's clear that the publicity gained from their couple status worked, and it made them a lot of money that they might not have made otherwise. Of course, this might not be the healthiest thing for a couple either, seeing as Hyuna and Dawn are no longer together. Placing them front and center and focusing more on their brand than their relationship isn't something that's really sustainable or healthy long term. For more on that, I would recommend watching Vixo's video on the flanderization of Hyuna and Dawn, since I think Vixo does a fantastic job summing up how this kind of thing can go wrong, but I do think that there is a way that you could do it right. It wouldn't be as profitable, but by avoiding creating a brand around a relationship, I think it's more realistic for two people to release music together, make a profit off of it, and avoid most of the negative effects that come with putting a relationship in the public eye. Of course, branding is inevitable in any sort of endeavor in entertainment. Even if you don't think about the brand you're making for yourself, people will still perceive a brand coming from you. But actively being mindful of that and trying to minimize that manufactured aspect of the brand as much as possible so as to not impede on the very real relationship at the center of it all could prevent some of the issues that I suspect popped up with Hyuna and Dawn. Another thing to be extra mindful of is who your audience is, because that's going to greatly influence the marketing efforts and therefore how successful you are. My guess would be that the West would take this kind of couple strategy way better than the Korean general public because we're just more used to seeing it in our everyday media and tabloids, but sometimes the Korean general public will surprise you. I could see it working with maybe a couple that has a more cute and innocent image. They'd probably have to be older idols too, but I could see it happening as like a once in a blue moon thing. And do you know what? Who cares if Delulus get mad at first? Because most people are rational and won't really care that much. Just make good music and most people will stream it. Then you just get the added bonus of shippers going out of their way to make the couple as successful as possible. I just think it would be hilarious if one day the entire industry decided, you know what, we should let our idols date each other and then make bank off it. Because can you imagine the chaos? All of the chronically online fans would just short circuit because their choices are either hate literally everyone or give up and finally stop obsessing over random people's love lives. I know it would never happen, but thinking about it amuses me very thoroughly because I have just a little too much chaotic neutral in me sometimes, okay? So those are some of the reasons that I have for the dating ban making sense and not making sense. If you want to know where I stand on the issue personally, I don't think it should be a contractual thing, but I absolutely think that companies need to educate their idols about what they might be stepping into if they go public or if Dispatch catches them or something like that. It's just, The K-pop environment is so tumultuous right now. If Wonyoung can get mass hate for eating a strawberry, I don't blame companies at all for saying, hey, keep your relationships on the DL. But that does it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about this issue in the comments down below. Where do you fall on this spectrum, and are there any big points that you think that I missed? I think we could start some really interesting conversations with this one, so let's talk about it some more. Also, if you liked the video, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel as it really helps me out. Thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you all next time. Bye!